Amaterasu is the Pillar of Madness and was the very first pillar in Fire Force. She survived the Great Cataclysm and has an Adolla Burst. But instead of living a normal life, she has been turned into a thermal power generator power plant. Her Adolla flames have been used to power all of Tokyo for centuries. But how did she end up like this? And what's her connection to Iris? Let me break it down for you. So hold on tight, because starting with Amaterasu, I'm about to introduce you to every pillar in the Fire Force in just a few minutes. First off, Amaterasu looks a lot like Iris. When she takes control of Shinra, she messes with his emotions, using his anger toward the people who call him a devil and his hatred for the Infernal that destroyed his family. True to her title as the Pillar of Madness, Amaterasu tries to push Shinra into burning everything down. She wants to see the world engulfed in flames, just like the suffering she has endured as a living power source for Tokyo. This manipulative side also shows when she appears before Inca, telling her that danger is coming so great that it will make her fall in love. Her story goes back 250 years, right after the first cataclysm. Even though it didn't wipe everything out, it strengthened the connection between the world and Adolla. This gave Yona, a follower of the Evangelist, a chance to cross over with the insects and search for a perfect vessel, someone with a major influence. That's when he found her, a tiny girl with no known name. The moment he saw her, he knew she was the one he'd give to humanity. From then on, she was called Amaterasu or Hito Hashirame, meaning First Pillar. With her Adolla Burst, she helped rebuild civilization after the destruction. Yona then found Raffles, a survivor traveling with the caravan, and made him the leader of a new religion. He became the savior who brought Amaterasu to the people, creating a belief system that would last for generations. And just like that, the Holy Soul religion was born. To the world, Amaterasu was seen as a blessing, a guiding light. But in reality, this was all part of the Evangelist plan to prepare for the next cataclysm. One person who saw the truth was Vulcan, a descendant of the Joseph clan, the family that originally built the Amaterasu power plant. He was completely against using an Adolla Burst user as an energy source. That's because during the power plant's construction, one of his ancestors heard a little girl crying for help. Realizing what was really happening, he decided to hide the key to Amaterasu, which sparked a conflict between Giovanni and the Joseph family that lasted for years. Massive spoiler alert! Near the end of the series, Amaterasu chooses to disappear, taking the world's despair with her. Before she goes, she tells Iris to live for both of them, since she has no desire to step into the new world Shinra has created. Inca Kusukatani is a third-generation pyrokinetic who eventually awakened her Adolla Burst. Her ability lets her sense heat pathways through smell. That means she can predict how fires, explosions, or other ignition abilities will move, spread, or explode. This is how she dodges attacks from Shinra and Karin, even without much battle experience. Once she fully awakened, she could also create explosions just by running her fingers through the air along these invisible pathways. This kind of pyrokinetic ability doesn't fit the usual nature of a third generation though. First generations turn into flame humans during spontaneous combustion. Second generations control and manipulate fire. And third generations can only generate flames from their bodies. They can't predict where fires will start. Since Inca's powers don't fully fit into any of these, she decides she was something new, an undiscovered fourth generation. She first awakened her power during a massive fire 2 years ago. At first, she thought she was doomed, ready to burn with everything else. But then, in the middle of the chaos, she suddenly felt something different. Instead of fear, she felt excitement. She could see imaginary lines tracing where the fire would go. The thicker and brighter the lines, the stronger the flames would be. Without these lines though, she couldn't ignite anything. At her core, Inca loves danger. She lives for the thrill of it. After escaping the fire, she and her friends became fire thieves. By smelling the ignition paths of flames, she could help people escape, but only if they paid her. She wasn't some hero doing good out of kindness. Inca eventually joined the White Clad instead of the Fire Force because she saw two possible futures. If she went with the Fire Force, she'd have a peaceful, boring life. If she joined the White Clad, she'd face non-stop danger, which sounded way more fun. She can also see the future, but only what is guaranteed to happen. When she linked with Shinra at light speed, they got a glimpse of the world before human combustion began. As the fifth pillar, Inca represents destruction. She followed the vision she saw, taking Haumeia's hand, even if it meant despair and death. But later, in the world Shinra rebuilt, she had a change of heart. She introduced herself and Iris to Shinra's mother as his girlfriends. She even said she wanted Shinra's babies, though not in the sense of being a wife or getting all romantic. She simply wants the seed of Shinra, the hero who saved the world. Nataku's son is the sixth pillar, representing fear. He's a young boy who was forcefully turned into a third-generation pyrokinetic after being bitten by a bug. His ignition ability lets him create a claw from his right arm. But when his Adolla Burst awakened, he gained the power to generate floating radiation symbols made of fire. These symbols can fire powerful beams from a distance. This ability, called Polluted Imagination, kicks in when Nataku is overwhelmed by pressure, trapping him inside a giant flame human of his own creation. Even in its early stages, these radiation symbols are dangerously powerful. People without fire abilities must be kept far away. If the radiation keeps growing stronger, it could become catastrophic. At full power, it has enough firepower to wipe out an entire city, leaving a crater 500 kilometers wide. The only reason this didn't happen was because Karin redirected the attack toward the moon instead. Through an Adolla link, Nataku was able to reach out to Shinra, who was desperately asking for help and saying he wanted to go home. You see, during the incident at the abandoned warehouse with Rekka and Tamaki, Nataku was bitten by a bug and started to turn into an infernal. Luckily, he turned out to be compatible with the flames, and this prevented the transformation. After that, Hajime Industries took him in. However, their goal was to find or create a pyrokinetic with an Adolla Burst to develop a second energy source for Amaterasu. Nataku was subjected to painful experiments and harsh battle training, most of the time against the Uncle Reaper himself, Kurono. Ever since the incident that turned him into a pyrokinetic, Nataku has suffered from PTSD. He's constantly haunted by hallucinations of Rekka, who keeps pushing him to unleash his full power, even when he can't control it. Rekka's voice in his head is what drove Nataku to go berserk and use polluted imagination uncontrollably. Through another Adolla link, Shinra got a deeper look into Nataku's mental state. Nataku's father was a doctor, and his parents pressured him to follow in his footsteps. They pushed him to get good grades and live up to their expectations. Before he was taken by Hajime Industries, his mother told him to do his best, and Nataku said yes, but his expression made it clear he felt like nothing more than a puppet. Even though Kurono was known for beating Nataku during experiments, he actually turned out to be the best guardian for him. Kurono constantly told Nataku that it was better to stay weak, and in a strange way, that removed all the pressure he had been carrying. For the first time, Nataku felt like he didn't have to rush to get stronger. Being allowed to stay a child rather than shouldering heavy expectations was more helpful to him than anything else. In the world of death Shinra created, Nataku and Sho even became good friends. Real quick, before we dive into the next pillar and reveal more about Sho, Shinra, and Iris, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to stick around until the end and hit that like and subscribe button. Alright, let's return to the Holy Flames. Latum. Samira is one of the Evangelist's direct servants, and the 7th pillar representing disgust. She's been around since before the Great Cataclysm, and this woman is one of the most unexpected villains in the series. Not only did she create the pillars after the failed Cataclysm, but she's also responsible for burning down the St. Raffles Convent, the Holy Soul Temple where Iris and Hibana grew up as orphans. As a 3rd generation pyrokinetic, Samira's power revolves around vibrations, specifically shivering. When she feels cold, her body trembles instinctively, and she amplifies that trembling into powerful vibrations that generate kinetic energy. With Adolla Burst, these vibrations are so intense that they can injure fire soldiers, cause earthquakes, and even form massive stone pillars, the same ones that were set up for the Great Cataclysm. This suggests she might be behind some of the unnatural earthquakes in the series. Disguising herself as a sister caring for orphans, Samira's real goal was far darker. She conducted doppelganger experiments and turned people into pyrokinetics. By mixing Adolla bugs into vegetables and feeding them to children, she triggered spontaneous human combustion, ultimately creating the pillars, especially the 8th pillar, the doppelganger of Amaterasu. 250 years ago, in the year 20XX, before the Great Cataclysm, Samira went by the name Sumire Sugata. Even back then, she served for the Evangelist, pushing forward the goal of instigating the Great Cataclysm. You see, Samira had grown tired of humanity, disgusted by how people obsessed over meaningless fads, social media, television, and religion. Believing that the Cataclysm was necessary, she worked toward leading the world into despair and destruction. However, after experiencing both the modern world and the world of flames, Samira had no interest in continuing into a world of death and souls. Sho Kusakabe is Shinra's younger brother, someone who is supposed to be dead but instead turns up as a member of the White Clad and the 3rd pillar. He symbolizes apathy, and while Shinra is both the devil and the hero, Sho is the angel guiding his brother. Sho was originally classified as a 3rd generation pyrokinetic, but after awakening his Adolla Burst through an Adolla link and the influence of the preacher, his abilities became those of a 4th generation. His pyrokinetic power lets him draw heat from the expansion of the universe, allowing him to slow down time. With his Adolla Burst, he takes this even further with his ability, Severed Universe, which stops time completely. If opponents don't understand the true nature of the Severed Universe, it creates the illusion that Sho is simply moving at extreme speeds. In reality, he's expanding the universe itself by manipulating the heat of flames, all with the help of the Adolla Burst, the preacher's divine protection, and the grace of the Evangelist. This ability leaves everyone frozen in place, except for Sho and eventually Shinra. The drawback is that using the Severed Universe exposes Sho to extreme cold. Once the ice starts forming, he has to stop immediately or risk serious damage. Along with his time manipulation abilities, Sho wields a katana and is an expert swordsman, strong enough to overpower Shinra and other fire soldiers. At first, Sho fully believes the preacher is his only true family. The idea of having a mother and a brother like Shinra disgusts him so much it makes him sick. But during one of their battles, Sho experiences an Adolla vision and sees Shinra's memories. He learns about Shinra's memories and his own past, how he was kidnapped by the White Clad because of his Adolla Burst, and that he actually has a real mother and brother. As soon as he regains his memories, the White Clad sees this as a problem. So Haumea steps in and mind controls Sho before he can turn against them. Sho finally breaks free from Haumea's mind control after another Adolla link with Shinra. With his memories fully restored, he tries to escape on his own to reunite with his brother. But before he can, his guardian, Arrow, catches up to him. She insists on staying with him, not to stop him, but simply to protect him. So, in the end, all is well. With this, Sho finds a new purpose. Before the world is destroyed, he wants to uncover more about himself and his family. In doing so, he stumbles upon some crucial revelations. Most importantly, he and Shinra were born of a virgin birth. They have no father, and there's a significant reason why. Shinra is the hero of the world, a child born of a virgin, a savior. As for Sho, he's a literal angel, destined to guide and protect Shinra at all costs. And that's exactly what he does. When Shinra battles the doppelganger of Raffles I and Fiere, Sho steps in to remind him that the world needs him as its hero. During the fight with Haumea, Sho ensures that Shinra doesn't fall into rage and despair, because if he does, it'll mean the complete end of the world. Together with their mother, Mari, Sho creates a miracle. Using soul resonance, they unite their souls, Shinra as the hero, Sho as his guardian angel, and Mari as the embodiment of hope. This resonance transforms Shinra into the true savior, Shinra Banshoman. Haumea is the second pillar, representing passivity, and the one destined to become the saint of the world. At first glance, she might seem like a crazed maniac who enjoys causing pain, whether it's her enemies or her allies. But here's something you might not know. All this time, she's actually been suffering, tormented by the darkest thoughts of humanity. Thanks to her Adolla Burst, though, she has the power to create the Great Cataclysm. And by the end of the series, that's exactly what she sets out to do. Haumea is a third-generation pyrokinetic with an awakened Adolla Burst. This grants her terrifying abilities. She can observe battles and past events through Adolla hallucinations, control demon infernals to a degree, and even summon a doppelganger demon. But doing so puts her under immense pain and stress. Her ignition ability allows her to generate electrical shocks. She can shut down electric systems, manipulate people's nervous signals to control them like puppets, and even communicate over long distances using electrical signals. On top of that, Haumea can also read people's thoughts. The thing is, this ability, Talking Head, is always active. She can't turn it off. That means she constantly hears the true thoughts and intentions of everyone around her, and this takes a massive toll on her mental state. Since the moment she was born, Haumea has been burdened with hearing humanity's deepest, darkest desires, the despair tied to Adolla. She spent her entire life drowning in the collective unconscious, and it shattered her mind. Imagine feeling like your head is about to split open every second of the day. Even as a child, she was forced to hear the filthiest, most violent, and greedy thoughts of mankind. That's why Karan is so devoted to her. He sees her suffering and is willing to bring about the cataclysm to finally free her from this nightmare. This is where Haumea's violent urges truly began. Seeing her struggle, Karan let her beat him as much as she wanted just to help ease her suffering. That's why Haumea refused to break. She learned to embrace the chaos of the endless voices and whispers. But if there's one person she truly loves, it's Karan. Karan even lets her see inside his mind so she can understand his unconditional love for her. So when he sacrificed himself for the Evangelist's success, Haumea screamed and cried. With the Great Cataclysm in motion and half the planet in flames, Haumea led the pillars to bring about the world's end. At this point, she still saw hope as nothing more than naive optimism. To her, despair wasn't anything special. It was just another part of the cycle. And the only way to break that cycle is death. Haumea became a god, a saint. By fully connecting with the Evangelist, she transformed into the Holy Woman of Despair. The Evangelist, it turns out, was just a form of humanity's collective unconscious. And now that Haumea has absorbed all of it, she gained the power to justify her actions. She has opened her eyes, which are looking down on Earth's subconscious, and her eyes are filled with compassion and sorrow. With Amaterasu and Iris dead, and Inca and Samira sacrificing themselves for her, Haumea gained all their abilities and divine protection. With these new powers, she fought against Sho and Shinra. She can now dodge their attacks, even in stop time, where only they should have been able to move. She also gained the ability to release a devastating burst of the light of madness, but in the end, thanks to the miracle created by Shinra, Sho, and their mother, Haumea was freed from despair. Those who had died were reborn in the new world, a world where life and death had changed, and among those revived was Karan. With him alive once more, Haumea made her choice. She chose to live again, and now it seems like she has found happiness at Karan's side. Shinra Kusakabe is the fourth pillar and the one who represents rage. He's a pyrokinetic fire soldier in Special Fire Force Company 8, and his dream is to become a hero. Shinra's goal is to save people from spontaneous human combustion and uncover the truth behind his family's death. As a third-generation pyrokinetic, Shinra can ignite, control, and release flames from his feet. His firepower only grows stronger over time, and because of his reputation as the Devil, the aftermath of his abilities is sometimes called the Devil's Footprint. With this ignition ability, Shinra gains incredible speed and strength, allowing him to take down Infernals, White Clads, and even other fire soldiers. He also learned special hand signs from Captain Obi and Benimaru, which helped him reset his mental state when afraid or increased the power of his attacks. After training with Benimaru, Shinra mastered Rapid, a technique that lets him control his life force to enhance his speed and strength. But what truly pushes him beyond his limits is anger. As the Pillar of Rage, the more furious he gets, the stronger he becomes. At one point, Shinra even ascended to a 4th generation state, allowing him to accelerate at the speed of light. His body literally disintegrates into particles before reforming again. This is his Adolla Burst, which lets him move through the stop time of Sho's severed universe. Years ago, Shinra lost his mother and younger brother in a tragic incident. That moment triggered the awakening of his 3rd generation powers. This also led to his nervous laughter, which caused him to smile uncontrollably in stressful situations. This, however, caused Shinra to be framed as the culprit for killing his family and the reason why everyone called him a devil. All this time, Shinra thought that the horned demon-looking infernal he saw back then was the one behind the death of his family. What he didn't find out earlier was that the infernal demon is actually his mother, who's also revealed to be the doppelganger of the Evangelist. Like Sho, Shinra is of a virgin birth. After all, he's the chosen savior of the world. But more on that later. Shinra committed the gravest sin possible in Special Fire Force Company 8. When he linked with Inca through an Adolla link, they caught a glimpse of the modern world, the world before the Cataclysm, but the sight was too much for him to handle. It was so surreal and overwhelming that he felt like throwing up, struggling to keep his sanity in check. While Shinra was lost at the moment, 3 months passed, and in that time, his Adolla doppelganger had taken over his body. By the time he realized it, it was already too late. During that period, Shinra attacked Iris. His Adolla counterpart is the complete embodiment of the devil reputation Shinra had been trying to escape. This version of him has tattoos, piercings, dyed hair, and a completely different, more delinquent look. But the real problem isn't just his appearance, it's his personality. Even Arthur describes him as a waste of space, someone cruel, violent, and cold-blooded. He's the twisted version of Shinra, the one the rumors painted him to be, a boy who tattooed his body to celebrate killing his own mother. And as for why he hurt Iris, let's save that for later. When fighting Haumea, Shinra constantly suppresses his rage, even after learning about Iris' death. Because if he lets his anger take over, the world will end. The flames of the Great Cataclysm will consume the world. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. When he sees Captain Obi being defeated by his own doppelganger, Shinra loses himself to despair and lets his rage take over. Luckily, Arthur knocked some sense into Shinra all the way from outer space. He reminded Shinra of their promise. Arthur had once asked him whether he was a hero or a devil, and depending on his answer, Arthur would have to cut him down. Those words snapped Shinra out of his despair and reignited his hope. After that, Shinra met his mother again, and with Sho, they fused their souls into one, transforming him into a godlike being, the Shinra Banshoman. As Shinra Banshoman, Shinra gained omnipotent abilities that allowed him to counter the despair spread by Haumea, the Evangelist, and their fusion, the Holy Woman of Despair. Instead of relying on rage, Shinra Banshoman drew power from his positive emotions like hope, determination, and willpower. He could wrap reality, turn black flames into fields of flowers, reshape Earth's continents with a single stomp, and even bring his thoughts into existence. With this power, Shinra Banshoman caught Haumea's divine light, something no one else could have survived, and used it to restore the world. He created mountains, revived animals and plant life, and transformed the burning planet into a thriving blue planet. By manipulating time, he erased the light of despair and used Licht and Vulcan's intelligence to rebuild civilization, even bringing back those who wished to live again. In this new world, Shinra Banshoman changed the meaning of life and death and made them closer and more intimate. He wiped out all despair and even created a new god to oversee the cycle of life and death. This god stripped away all powers, erasing pyrokinesis and the Pillar's abilities, and even eliminating spontaneous human combustion. Despite losing their abilities, those with strong souls retained their strength and formed the World Heroes Force. Shinra became a key member and, by the age of 42, had risen to the position of Supreme Commander. He also seemed to have children, one with Iris and another with Inca. Iris is the 8th pillar, representing despair. She was once a sister at the Holy Soul Temple, living alongside Hibana, and later became a key member of the Special Fire Force Company 8. Most importantly, she's the doppelganger of the first pillar, Amaterasu. As a sister of the Fire Force, Iris's role was to offer prayers during the subjugation of Infernals, believing it helped them pass on peacefully. She first revealed her 3rd generation pyrokinetic abilities to Shinra's doppelganger. When the fire broke out at her convent, leaving only her and Hibana as survivors, Iris actually awakened her powers but never realized it because they were so weak. However, once the stone pillars appeared, her pyrokinetic abilities grew stronger. However, Iris felt uneasy about her new abilities. That's why she talked with Shinra's doppelganger. Upon learning the truth, Shinra's doppelganger hit her. Not because of her powers, but because he discovered that she too was a doppelganger. He didn't want her to stay close to him. Iris being Amaterasu's doppelganger makes sense even to Shinra. After all, considering the true nature of the doppelgangers, Iris embodies warmth and kindness, like a sunflower radiating light. If you described her that way to any citizen of the Empire, they'd assume you were talking about Amaterasu. Iris first showed her ability to create a miracle that defended all of them from Dragon's attack. While Iris herself thought that it was not her doing but Maki's instead, Licht on the other hand noticed the light of the Adolla Burst in Iris. Iris did it again a few chapters later, and this time she granted herself and her allies a protective aura of heat. like some kind of buff that gives them high immunity to flames. The aura was so strong it even protected them from the shockwaves of Shinra's lightspeed attacks. In the end, Iris and Amaterasu accepted Haumea's so-called salvation through death. Or rather, Haumea killed them and stole their powers. However, after Shinra Banshaman revived everyone and convinced Haumea to live, Iris and Amaterasu had a conversation. Iris, ever selfless, believed Amaterasu should live instead of her since she was just a doppelganger. But Amaterasu chose death. She genuinely wants Iris to live for both of their sakes. But now that you know about every apocalyptic pillar in Fire Force, it's time to check out the most important characters from other awesome series like Kaiju number 8 and Sakamoto Days. Want to see how these animes develop their strongest characters? Click here to compare them yourself.